Suddenly, on the sonar screen was the shape of a giant shark.
Something was recorded off the coast of Guadalupe Island that 3 separate marine research institutes are still studying behind closed doors. A 15-foot great white shark, one of the ocean's most feared apex predators, was filmed carrying a wound that should not exist. A clean, circular ring of punctures wrapped around her entire torso. Not a slash, not a scrape. A perfect circle. And when the researchers ran the measurements, the math came back wrong. Whatever closed its jaws around this animal had a mouth wider than the shark's own head. Scientists who have spent their careers studying these animals watched the footage and went quiet. Because if the evidence is real, something is hunting great white sharks, and nobody can say what it is. A wound that shouldn't exist. Marin had done more than 40 cage dives at Guadalupe Island. She knew what a normal great white looked like. She knew how they moved, how they circled the cage, how the bigger females would glide past like slow-moving submarines and barely acknowledge the divers watching from behind the bars. She was not easily impressed, so when a large female drifted past the cage on what started as a routine dive, Marin kept her camera steady and tracked the animal the way she always did. The shark was enormous, 15 feet from nose to tail, easy. A mature female, the kind of animal that has been doing exactly what she wants in these waters for decades. Nothing about the approach seemed unusual. Then she passed broadside, and Marin saw it. Wrapped around the shark's chest, just behind the pectoral fins, was a ring of punctures so geometrically precise it looked like it had been carved. Not jagged, not torn. A clean circle of triangular impressions pressed deep into the hide, arranged in a pattern so even and deliberate that for a moment Marin thought she was seeing something man-made. A propeller scar maybe, some kind of equipment contact. But the longer she looked, the less that explanation held. Back on the boat that evening, she pulled the footage up on her laptop and started counting frames. She measured the wound against the shark's own anatomy, using the head as a scale reference. The shark's skull, from the tip of the snout to the gill slits, measured roughly 34 inches. The bite ring came back at approximately 42. She ran the numbers 3 times. The mouth that had closed on this animal was wider than its head. The night nobody slept. Captain Hugo Valdez had been running expeditions in these waters for 20 years. When Marin played him the clip in the galley that night, he watched it twice without saying a word. On the second pass, he leaned toward the screen and paused on the clearest frame. Then, he said exactly what every experienced expedition captain says when something doesn't add up out here. Log it. Send it to the scientists. Don't post anything until they call you back. He asked Marin how close she had been when she shot the footage. She told him. He didn't respond to that either. The next morning, 3 of the 6 paying divers didn't show up for the first cage drop. One said she wasn't feeling well. The other 2 didn't offer any explanation at all. By the time the rest of the group was in the water, those 3 were sitting in the galley holding coffee they weren't drinking. Nobody on the boat asked them why. Everyone already knew. Because the question wasn't whether the footage was real. The footage was real. The question was, what had made that mark? And the more anyone thought about it, the harder it became to come up with an answer that didn't make things considerably worse. The physics of something impossible. Dr. Ryan Keller received the footage 4 days later. A colleague forwarded it with no subject line explanation, just the location and the words, "Watch to the end." She watched it 3 times. First pass, her instinct said propeller scar. Second pass, she zoomed in and saw the triangular puncture pattern along the wound's edge. Propellers ruled out immediately. Third pass, she sat back in her chair and didn't move for almost a minute. Then she walked to her office window and said the thing nobody in the lab wanted to hear out loud. Whatever made that mark wasn't warning the shark away. It wasn't territorial. It was a feeding attempt. Something had tried to eat her. Keller called Marin that afternoon. They were on the phone for nearly 2 hours, working through every frame methodically. Keller started where any shark biologist would, with other sharks. Great whites are not social animals, but at aggregation sites like Guadalupe, they maintain a strict hierarchy based on size. Bigger animals dominate. Smaller ones get bumped or nipped if they push their luck. That is what serious aggression looks like at Guadalupe. It is nothing like what happened to this female. When sharks fight, Keller told Marin, they go for the head or the gills, the sensitive places. This mark was wrapped around the middle of the body. That is not a fight. That is something grabbing her to hold her still. The moment anyone started thinking about it as a hunt instead of a fight, the math stopped working. Cannibalism exists in the shark world. Larger animals do occasionally go after smaller ones. But this female was not small. She was a 15-foot adult. For another great white to attempt to engulf her, the attacker would need to be somewhere between 25 and 30 feet long. The largest great white ever officially documented, a shark nicknamed Deep Blue, measured around 20 feet. A 30-foot shark would rewrite every textbook currently in print. Mating was the next hypothesis. Male great whites grip the female during reproduction, and mating scars are common. But mating marks are shallow, irregular, and almost always located around the neck and upper fins. This wound was deep, geometrically perfect, and in entirely the wrong position on the body. The spacing of the punctures pointed to a jaw far wider than any male on record at Guadalupe. Mating, ruled out. Territorial aggression, ruled out. Another great white as the attacker. Possible only if that great white was the size of something that has never been caught, filmed, or measured in the modern era. When the only answer left is the one nobody wants to say. Keller's team ran the jaw width against the documented range for every Pacific great white in the regional catalog. 0 matches. Whatever closed its teeth on that female was not in the database at all. Then, there was the question of the orca. Killer whales are the one animal on Earth known to regularly hunt great whites. In South Africa, a pair of orcas have been systematically targeting sharks along a stretch of coastline, and the great whites in the area have not returned in years, the apex predator driven off by something higher on the food chain. But orcas don't leave marks like the one on the Guadalupe female. Their teeth are large and blunt and conical. They crush and rip. They don't leave clean rings of serrated triangular punctures. When they kill a shark, they tear it open and extract the liver. They don't try to swallow the entire animal whole. The wound on this shark was unmistakably the work of something sharing an evolutionary lineage with great whites themselves. The 2014 tag that changed everything. While reviewing old data files, Keller pulled up an incident most people outside marine biology had forgotten. An incident from 2014 that nobody in her field had. Australian researchers had tagged a 9-foot great white to study her migration patterns. For the first several days, the tag behaved exactly as expected. Normal depth readings, normal temperature fluctuations. The shark went about her routine. Then she dove. Not a normal dive. She plunged nearly 2,000 feet, far deeper than a great white that size would ever voluntarily go. Researchers assumed the tag had malfunctioned. It hadn't. Because at the moment she reached that depth, the temperature reading jumped from 46 degrees Fahrenheit, the ambient cold of the deep water, to nearly 80 degrees, in seconds. There is only one explanation for a temperature spike like that. The shark had been swallowed. A great white's internal body temperature does not climb that high. The only things in the deep ocean warm enough to produce a reading like that are large marine mammals, or a considerably bigger shark with an unusually active metabolism. The Australian team published part of the data. They described the attacker vaguely, possibly a larger great white, possibly a predatory whale. But the researchers who worked on it directly have been more candid in private. When Keller pulled the original file and saw the numbers, she said what her colleagues had been saying quietly for over a decade. This is a pattern, not an anomaly, the name nobody wants to use. Officially, science has settled the question of the Megalodon, the largest shark that ever lived, over 50 feet long, with teeth the size of human hands, and a jaw wide enough to engulf a small car, went extinct approximately 3.5 million years ago. The oceans cooled, the prey moved, the fossil record ends, case closed. But ask the small community of researchers who take the Guadalupe footage seriously what could produce a bite that geometry, and the same name keeps surfacing. Keller is careful in public. In private correspondence that later reached a documentary team, she acknowledged that the wound geometry matched a juvenile Megalodon more closely than any animal currently cataloged. She did not call it a certainty. She called it the best fit for the available evidence. The argument isn't that Megalodons are everywhere. It's that a remnant population could have survived by retreating to the one environment that has changed the least in millions of years, the deep ocean. The bathyal zone, between 3,000 and 13,000 feet, is freezing, crushing, and nearly unmapped. Only around 5% of it has been surveyed in any meaningful detail. That leaves 95% of the planet's largest continuous habitat as potential range for whatever wants to stay invisible. Fresh-looking megalodon teeth have been recovered from deep-sea sediment more than once. The official explanation is that pressure and cold preserve them extraordinarily well. The unofficial one is harder to dismiss when you're looking at 42-inch bite rings on 15-foot sharks. Dr. Jun Tanaka, a deep-sea ecologist at Scripps, offered Marine one other possibility when she visited his office in La Jolla. Outliers happen. Every species carries the biological capacity to produce one individual that ignores every growth limit the rest of the population obeys. Sleeper sharks, Greenland sharks, even great whites. Occasionally, something is born that keeps growing long after it should have stopped. An animal nobody ever films because it never needs to come to the surface. Before Marin left his office, Tanaka stopped at the door and told her one more thing. Whatever bit her shark, he said, almost certainly never broke the surface to do it. Surface is for animals that need air. Whatever this is, does its work in the dark. Final thought. Marin still dives at Guadalupe. She tracks the larger animals by their fin markings and tail notches the way a naturalist tracks rare birds. In the last season alone, she logged 3 additional unusual wound patterns on other sharks at the site. Nothing as dramatic as the female's ring, but unusual enough to document and send to Keller's team every month. A bite on a juvenile that doesn't match known predators. A scar on a male she had filmed clean the year before. Patterns that, taken alone, mean nothing. Patterns that, taken together, start to look like something has been moving through these waters for a long time. And the great whites that come here every season to hunt seals are not, as it turns out, at the top of that particular food chain. Keller keeps the Guadalupe footage on a drive in her office. She pulls it up for visiting researchers from time to time. The reaction is always the same, a long silence. Then the same question. What did that? She stopped trying to answer with certainty. One of her interns asked her what the odds were that the attacker would ever be identified in her lifetime. She said the odds were low, but not zero. Every year, more cameras descend into deeper water. Every year, the contact zone between the world humans can see and whatever lives below it gets a little smaller. The bite on the Guadalupe female still doesn't make sense for any animal currently in the scientific record. The footage exists, the measurements hold, the healed scar is real, and no animal in the modern catalog has the mouth that made it. The deep keeps its secrets. It always has. But sometimes, just sometimes, one of those secrets swims up close enough to leave a mark. Do you think a prehistoric giant like the Megalodon is still hiding somewhere in the unexplored deep? Or is there something else out there not yet named? Drop your theory in the comments. And if mysteries like this one are worth following, subscribe, because there's another one already waiting in the queue.